Welcome back. I'm Fred Green, and this is Golf Smarter Mulligans number 16. Carey Mumford is our featured guest today, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But his clear key system of keeping your mind clear of clutter when taking a golf shot, it lives on. Many teachers that we've talked to and many teachers who we haven't are still using his clear key system. Luckily, we had a chance to have Carey on Golf Smarter in 2006, episode 45. And then later I actually had a chance to sit down with Carey, and actually not even sitting down. We worked one-on-one, and he taught me some of the clear key hands-on at the Bird Golf Academy in Arizona. But later in our conversation, Carey says that one of the things he's trying to accomplish is teaching how to practice the way we play, because we can't play the way we practice. Makes sense? Does to me. So let's move on with one of the founding fathers of golf sports psychology, Carey Mumford. Welcome, Carey.
Hey, thank you, Fred. It's nice to be aboard your show there.
Well, we appreciate you coming on because just a week or so ago, we spoke to Jay Ewing of the Bird Golf Academy, and he spoke quite highly of you. And actually, other interviews that I've done, your name has come up because we frequently talk about the mental part of the game.
I got you.
And for some reason, you keep getting referred to. Why is that?
Well, I think it may be a two-edged sword. I mean, some people may mention me because they would love to make fun of some of the simple ways that I put things and treat them like they don't count. But others are really intrigued by the different approach that I take. So it's probably a double-edged thing there.
Well, then let's pursue that. What is the different approach that you take?
Well, I've got to do this, Fred, without casting aspersions on anybody else. And if anything I say sounds like I'm doing that, just stop me, because that is not where I intend to go, okay?
All right, we take that well.
The issue that I've dealt with more than any other is that the whole realm of golf psychology has approached the matter of the mental game as though it were a set of emotions or a set of feelings or even a set of beliefs and values, when in fact the mental game really has to do with how you use your thinking to provide the kind of result you want to get, okay? Mm-hmm. And so all those other things are tributaries. They're satellites. They're peripheral issues. The main frame has to do with how you think is what you will do, and what you will do will determine what you get, okay? The result. So it's more about thinking. Now, the rest of it has to do with the fact that everybody can tell you what you need to do, but not quite get to how you go about doing it. I mean, a lot of people will say, okay, you got to have confidence. Well, that's true. That's important. How do you get confidence? Well, you get confidence by having the knowledge and the skill to do what you are setting out to do. And if you're missing either one of those, you're not going to have confidence. Or if either one of those is eroded in any way, you put yourself under pressure, you're going to lose that confidence almost instantly. So, and that's just an illustration, really. But what I look at is how do you take it from the inspiration of what I ought to do to the actual on-the-course product that you wish to achieve through action. That's not very simply put, but that's the way I see it, okay? And that's what makes what I talk about a little bit different, because I finished the course. In other words, nobody said anything bad. I know of nobody out there who says anything that is actually wrong. There may be some people who are pushing some mythological things. For instance, I can hardly open the pages of anything without seeing something about muscle memory. Well, there's no such thing as muscle memory because muscles do not have a storage system for the data that comes from thinking. You can condition muscles, but they don't memorize anything. You just make them very useful for whatever it is you want to do. But you still got to go through the mental part of the memory and the mental part of the command system to get the muscle to do what you ask it to do. Is that too gross there?
No. This is quite interesting. Keep going.
Well, there are a number of myths out there, and we'll probably get to them as we're trucking along here. But that's certainly one of them. But trying to get around that kind of motion is what everybody seeks to do. But if you don't have a way to move it from what I ought to do to how I do it, there's something missing in the ball game.
And this probably isn't an easy process to get there, is it?
Well, let's try a slightly different track. To me, there are three very important parts of getting your mental game in shape. One is to understand who you are so that you know whether you're playing the game within yourself or not. See, when I was teaching in the PGA education program, I profiled about 22,000 of the 26,000 PGA professionals over a 15-year period, all right? I found less than 50 out of that number who actually were playing the game within themselves, and that was probably by accident.
Now, wait a minute, not 50%. 50?
No, 50
people out of
22,000.
And these are PGA professionals.
Yes, but the reason is nobody ever had a way to look at what does it mean to play the game within yourself. Well, that's what got me started way back in 1975, 77, 78, and 80, along in there. Looking at what do people mean when they talk about playing the game within yourself? Well, most people mean, I tell you what, let's do. Get your game to match your physical structure and get your game to hold itself together and be committed to it, and you'll get a lot of answers like that. But playing the game within yourself literally means to match your game to who you are and the traits that you own. Now we're getting into something that is simple but complex. Okay, see, most people will tell you that we can do anything we want to do, we can be anything we want to be. Well, that's partly true and partly not true. What nobody seems to appreciate is that we come into this world with a set of traits. We don't come in as a blank piece of paper. We come in with a set of traits that were put there by Mother Nature, and they're going to stay with us from the day we're born till the day we die. Now, I've got two choices. I can either fight that system or I can cooperate with it. If I fight it, I'm going to give myself stress untold in nature and hard to measure. If I cooperate with it, I'm at least going to minimize the stress factors. So I said to myself, let's try to figure out how we're going to cooperate with this. Well, the first thing I got to do is understand who I am and where I'm coming from. So that's where the profile comes in. The profile will get as close as anybody can come to identifying what you brought with you courtesy of Mother Nature when you were born.
And this is a profile that is used by Jay Ewing at the Bird Golf Academy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's the profile that is used by the instructors to understand who it is they're going to be dealing with. And because I've already put them through a training program, they understand how their own style affects the teaching-learning relationship.
And that's why at the Bird Golf Academy they do a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 classes. They don't do large groups of people because they try to learn who you are and how you learn?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that is the fastest track Now, it's not the only track. It just happens to be the least stressful and the fastest track to developing something that you can come across.
And do you believe that that's the most effective way to communicate with a student?
Yes, that's foundational anyway. There may be some other issues that come in there, but that would be the basic one, yes.
And what are your feelings about group lessons?
The problem with a group lesson is that everybody's not at the same place at the same time in the group.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got different needs, and they've got different time frames and different schedules and different objectives. And to try to lump all those together means that I'm trying to make you play the game that I've designed rather than trying to design a game for you based on who you are.
Wow. Well, okay, so
that making sense, Dave?
Oh, yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating. It makes a tremendous amount of sense, and I'm sure that there's a much broader application than golf to all of this.
Oh, of course, yeah. I take the same information that I'm talking to you about right now, and I'll work with. I can do this with a group, but what the group gets is they withdraw their own particular information because they've got their own profile sitting in front of them. I rarely do a group thing without doing a profile on the front end of it, so that everybody understands that we're not just trying to pump some kind of standard gas into everybody's head.
Okay, so you talked about there's 3 important parts to the mental game. You said, well, you were talking about know who you are.
Okay, that's the style part. That's where the style thing comes in. Now, that also involves differentiating between style and personality, because everybody's got one of each of those. Right. Your style is what is basic. That's what you come equipped with. That's factory installed. Personality is all the options. You can add on all you want to, and most people do. Like, for instance, I used to explain it this way. If I'm standing in front of a group making a speech, my personality is not going to be the same as it's going to be if I'm bowling with a bowling team in the bowling alley on Friday night. I'll look a little different, but my style will still be the same in both of those cases. All
right, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's a rough illustration of it. So and what do you hear from when you read in the books and in the magazines? What does everybody try to tell you to do? Play by your personality. Personality has absolutely nothing to do with golf. Personality is what you and I use to gain the endorsement of other people. Style is where the engine runs and the train's going on.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That may sound a little heavy, but it's not.
No.
It makes a lot of sense. Either. But it's not simplistic either, and it requires a little bit of personal attention from everybody who gets involved in the game of golf, for sure. See, the deal is this: if I'm doing something that is totally solitary and self-initiated and self-contained, which is what golf is. Golf's not really a team game.
No.
You can be on a team. You can be on a team like Ryder Cup, but it's not a team game.
You still have to play your game.
That's exactly right. And so you got to initiate everything yourself. So when you're doing that, style's the only thing that counts. Now, the only time personality gets into the act is when I'm dealing with my caddy or the crowd. Because personality is purely interpersonal and style is purely for solitary activity. Well, not purely, but you use it in other ways, but it's drawn from solitary. Singularity.
And you think that's the kind of thing that made, like, Arnold Palmer so huge because of his personality?
Well,
and the fact that he won.
His personality is what got him mileage out in the world. No question about that. But what I think made Palmer such a good. See, Palmer was Jim Furyk before Jim Furyk. His swing was. If you go back and look at Palmer's early swing, a horrible swing. You wouldn't be able to duplicate that on a bet. Okay, but look at how he played with it.
Mm-hmm.
So he apparently understood. And of course, you got to go back now. You're getting back before the days of sports psychology and golf psychology and things like that. So guys really had to do that themselves. And a lot of guys see there is such a thing as getting so used to anxiety that it doesn't bother you as much. But that's the hard way to go. See, what I say is let's learn how to manage the anxiety, and then we'll be in a lot better shape. But we'll get to that in a minute. But Palmer, and this is where that whole image of mental toughness comes from. Mental toughness is a fraud. Mental toughness is nothing in the world but knowing how to manage yourself and knowing how to manage the situations that you come in contact with. Mental toughness is an attempt to control all that. And the harder you try to control stress and the harder you try to control anger and anxiety, the worse it gets. Sit around and try.
Yeah, I just had an epiphany. I mean, that was, yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that leads me. I sometimes freewheel when I get to doing these things, but I think about people who say, "Well, just don't look at that bunker down there." Well, what do you got to do to not look at the bunker? You got to see it. So you've already seen it, okay? You with me on that?
Yeah, and it's so funny because this weekend I was playing, and a friend of mine's like, "Am I always hitting in the water?" And I'm saying, "I don't see the water. I don't see the water." And it worked for me, but now I'm not so sure, huh?
Well, yeah. If you, what happens is, Fred, that we succeed in what we're doing often enough that it may fool us a little into believing that it doesn't count.
Okay.
See, here's what a lot of people don't realize. You go take stock of any round that you play sometime in a slightly different way. Ask yourself, how many shots did I really hit absolutely pure and on the button? And you're gonna find out it isn't very many.
Right, exactly.
You got around the course in pretty good shape. So the fooler is that's the best we can do, and it isn't.
Well, it must infuriate you as it does to me when you hear on a championship game, whatever the sport, and they say, "Well, they just didn't want it as much as the other guy."
Oh yeah, that's there. Of course, the problem there is that there is some truth in that. That's not a totally fraudulent statement. I mean, you got to want it. You got and wanting it and committing to it are very, very much akin to each other.
Right, but somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. It's
of course,
and it's the draw. The way the ball bounces, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating. I spend some time on some of the golf forums. As a matter of fact, I write some articles for the Australian forum, I Seek Golf, and as I'll pick up on a thing where somebody will say, "Well, Tiger's ruining the game of golf for everybody because it's no fun to watch him go out and beat everybody and nobody's trying to catch up." So the question I ask when that kind of question comes up is, whose problem is that? Should Tiger back off? Should we give everybody else a handicap? What's the deal here? Well, the deal is that the perception of the person who's looking at that, if he's bothered by it, I say, then go watch horse racing or something like that.
Yeah, and I hear more people saying that they watch more golf when Tiger's playing than when he's not.
Right, but see, that's a viewer problem, not the player problem.
Absolutely.
So and that's where that's where a lot of this stuff gets off track. But anyway,
as is this conversation.
Yes, I don't want to get too far off track here. But the style thing is number one.
Okay,
all right,
got it.
Okay, the second thing involved is what I refer to as the automatic principle. One has to learn how that works and be able to master it, and encapsulated in that is the use of the Clear Key tool. Clear Key is the tool for making the automatic principle work. Now, the automatic principle is very simple. Let me back up one step. There are 4 levels to learning. Don't worry about the first 2, but the third one is the skill level. That's where most people are playing the game of golf today, at the skill level, but that's only the third level of development. The fourth level is the habit level, but very few people are going there intentionally. Now, everybody's going to build habits sooner or later, but the trouble is golfers tend to build bad ones instead of good ones, but I shouldn't say bad ones, habits that aren't very useful, let's put it that way.
Okay.
So in order to build a sound, workable habit, one has to understand, first of all, the skill that's being developed, and then be able to get that skill into the habit level, which is the fourth dimension. Now, this is not, I didn't dream this up. I got this from Dr. Eric Erickson, who clearly outlines how that whole thing works. First level is trust. You got to trust something before you'll do anything with it at all. You don't get to trust, you start there. That's the first thing that happens to you in life. Because if you don't trust your mommy, you ain't going to survive. You are absolutely thrown into that dimension from day one. Okay. Mm-hmm. Second level is the level at which you develop some ability to control yourself and work within some kind of dimension at that level. And then the third level is where you start working on skills and you experiment with it. And the fourth level is where you develop your habits and build all that in so that it is useful to you at any time, any place, under any circumstances.
Okay, I need to stop for just a second. We had number 1 was trust. Or let's go backwards. Number 4 was habit. Number 3 was skill. Number 2
is the control.
Control. Okay.
The control arena.
Okay.
Okay. That's where Roy would have said that's where we worked on potty training. So it's the control time.
Okay.
But anyway, the third and the fourth level of training of development are where the golf game has to be intensely engaged. Okay, and most players are still playing at skill level. Because the skills require you to think about what you're doing while you're doing it. Okay?
But do most players, I mean, do the trust and control come into play? Because I don't know if most players trust their shots or if they have control over their shots.
They don't, but it's partly because they haven't understood what that's all about.
Okay.
They're trying to do that, though. Mm-hmm. And that's why you'll hear a lot of people, even the guru types will say, well, you got to learn to trust it. No, you got to start with trust. Now, here's how trust works. Trust is, coming out of my mouth, is I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my mind to this come hell or high water. I'm going to do it. I'm going to trust it. That's what you say before you take another step, okay?
Yep.
It's not, I'm going to do this for a while and see if I can get it right, and then I'll learn to trust it. It's not that way. Am I making the difference clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the skill level, I have to think about what I'm doing while I'm doing it. For instance, for me to drive a nail, I have to think about it because I don't do a lot of that, and I have some skill with a hammer, but I've got no habit with it. I can watch guys, and I've done this. I've watched guys put on roofs on houses, and they'll go about hammering. They're talking to each other while they're hammering, and they're missing their thumb every time. If I did that, I'd be hitting my thumb every time.
Absolutely.
Okay? All right. Now, you got to think about what you're doing while you're doing it to use a skill. For a habit, you have to perform without thinking about what you're doing while you're doing it. i.e. driving your car. You don't think about where your hands and your feet are when you're driving the car. You don't even think about where the road is and where the rest of the traffic is. Now, you're aware of all that, but you're not focusing your attention on that.
No, you're generally focusing it on your phone call.
Right, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Good for you. Now you know where the clear key came from. What the clear key does is distracts your conscious mind long enough for you to hit a golf shot that will come out as a habit. Now, the only catch to that is you better have some good habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important in learning and developing a golf game to first get the skills right and then know how to build those skills into habits.
Very interesting.
You with me on that?
I am.
Okay. So that's that and when you get it to the habit level and you do something without thinking about what you're doing while you're doing it, that's what automatic is. That's how automatic works. In other words, most of what we do in a day's time, we do automatically because we do it with habits that we've developed for ourselves. And that's Mother Nature's way of helping you to save time and energy. If we didn't have habits, man, if we had to stop and think about everything we did in the course of a day, we wouldn't finish the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying is let's simply apply that principle to our golf games, okay?
Okay.
Now, take a little breather there and notice this. See, when I work with a player, I don't have to plug in my umbilical cord and leave it there for the rest of his life. All I got to do is teach him what we're talking about right now, and then it's a self-managed system. He can do this forever because his stuff is deadly basic. And what makes it basic is, if you look at it, you can transfer what we're talking about to any environment into which you want to put it. And that's what makes something basic. If you can't transfer it to every environment in which you inhabit, then it's not basic. That's number 2, the automatic principle. Now, the clear key that goes with that is part of that, is the application tool for the automatic system. In other words, as soon as I plug in a clear key, of course, I have to give myself, and this is where your Key Tour program.
Right. It's a shot-by-shot guide on how to play a course.
Okay, that part of it is what I'm referring to. There is how marvelous that is as a pre-shot definer, because pre-shot's a very important part of this whole process. If you don't instruct yourself properly before you walk up over the ball, you don't have a chance of using a sound system. In other words, the pre-shot is to tell yourself which ones of your habits you want to bring into play in this next upcoming shot. So pre-shot, see, there's another one of those myths. Everybody says pre-shot has to be the same thing all the time. No, it doesn't, because every shot's not the same every time. Pre-shot has to pertain to the particular shot you're getting ready to hit.
So you're not a fan of pre-shot routine?
Oh, I am a fan of pre-shot routine. I'm saying
you just define it
one.
different. Okay,
the routine is just the sack you put it in. What goes into the sack will vary on every shot unless you have 2 exactly identical shots in a row.
And that's impossible.
Well, it's not necessarily impossible, but it doesn't happen very often. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, unless you have to hit your ball the second time because you hit it out of bounds.
Right, and see, and now you can feed back all sorts of things from that. See, when I am explaining something to a player, I'll say, now look, don't stand there and beat 75 5-irons. Change your clubs at least every 2 shots you hit, because that's the way you play.
Right.
And one of the things that I want people to learn how to do is to practice the way they play, because you can't play the way you practice, or the way most people practice. Let's put it that way.
There's the nugget. Please repeat that line.
Well, you got to learn to practice the way you play, because you cannot really play the way most people practice.
Awesome.
They're out there beating balls, and I hear all these things about, well, you got to, if you want to learn something, you got to hit 100 shots, or you got to hit 1,000 shots. You got to do 60 days. You got 21 days, and they'll tell you all about the reps. Well, repetition, yes, is the way to learn. But I went back and did a little careful study on that dimension too. Okay, Here's what I found out. Learning takes place best when it's done in short doses with little rest periods in between. That's number one. Number two is when you are learning something, if you do something once, you forget 50% of it immediately and 25% more within 48 hours. If you do something twice, it's the same numbers. If you do something 3 times, it's still the same numbers. But if you do something 4 times in succession, the same thing 4 times in succession, you get 90% retention. 5 times, 90%, 6 times, 90%, 10 times, 90%, 100 times, 90%. Well, this poor little Southern boy is going to tell you right quick that I'm not going to give you $100 for what I can get for 4. Okay? So what I said was, okay, if that's the way it works, let's see what kind of a here I come with my dad's math class. Okay, so what kind of a formula can I work off of this? So here's what I came up with: the 32-ball drill method. Okay. Okay. So if I want to learn a new skill, I'm going to stand there and think about what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and I'm going to hit 4 balls in succession on the range, okay? Thinking about what I'm doing while I'm doing it, the way we always did it, okay? The next 4, however, I'm going to back up and I'm going to rehearse what I want to have happen in pre-shot, and then I'm going to use a clear key. I'm going to say something like, legalize bingo, keep grandma off the street while I swing the club.
Well,
okay? Legalize bingo, keep grandma off the street is sort of an illustration of a clear key. So if I use that, and I'll get into this a little better shortly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut out all other thinking long enough for me to get what I asked for in pre-shot when I walk up and swing the club. Now, the reason I know that'll happen is because I also know from all the studies that you can only think one thought at a time. Now, people can move their thinking so rapidly that it may seem like they're thinking more than one thought at a time, but they're not. They're thinking in rapid succession. So if I'm thinking, legalize bingo, keep grandma off the street, I can't be thinking about taking the club away or doing anything particular with that. I'm just going to get out of the gun what's built into it. Now, I better have something good built into it. At first, when I'm doing this, however, now I'm working on the skill, trying to transfer it into a habit, so I'm not going to get a perfect result early, but if I keep up, after a while, it will start to come and it will solidify. Now, how long does it take that to happen? I have no idea, because it's going to be different for every single person. You might build a new habit out of a skill in 30 minutes. It might take me 3 days. It might take somebody else a week. Second skill, I might do it in 5 minutes, take you a week. So that will all vary depending upon who the person is, and some style things, and a number of other things. What he's had in his background. Did he play other sports? Did he have athletic ability? And all those things. All those things that are variables will figure into the equation. But now we've done 4 thinking about it and 4 not thinking about it, but we were thinking about something, because if you just leave your mind empty, your non-conscious material will jump up in there, and believe you me, it will be in default, and you will get just whatever you get. Now, a lot of people have trouble with that one, because most of the golfers I talk to at first don't want to hear that, because it sounds like they're going to be out of control, and they're not. They just have to learn how to manage themselves, and the control issue, it just isn't going to work. It's got to be a management strategy. So that if I can get somebody working with 32-ball drill, I'm going to get them there faster, and I'm going to get them there with a lot more ease, and it's organized. And I have yet to find anybody who did not like to use that method because it defines when the practice moment starts and when it's finished.
And you're saying do the 4 balls, then 4 balls, and do that whole thing over 4 times?
4 times, right.
Yeah.
So it's 4 plus 4 parentheses times 4.
Right.
That's 32. That's 1 unit of practice. Now, you can do as many units as you want to in a day.
Okay.
If you have enough time and you have enough energy left, you can do as many of those as you choose. That's not limited. So, and when somebody says to me, how long does it take to build a habit, I say, it takes as long as it takes. It's the only answer you can give to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's sort of a dimensional outline of the second part of it. And the third part, very important part, and this one a lot of people don't like to hear either, has to do with anxiety management, the management of anxiety. Fortunately, the clear key will help with that dimension, because if I put you on a clear key, you are absolutely in the present, and all anxiety is either in the future or in the past. There is no anxiety in the present. So if I can get you using a clear key, that puts your focus right dead center present and long enough for you to to execute a golf shot free of anxiety. Now, the problem with anxiety is the instant anxiety hits your system, it generates tension. And tension is a swing killer. Tension's where the yips come from.
Sure.
Tension will cause you to not get the club all the way back. It'll cause you to jerk it on takeaway. It'll cause you to yip it when coming down on the downswing and cause you to not finish your swing. It'll cause you to decelerate before the club head gets to the ball. It'll do all kinds of crazy things to you, and some of them you will recognize because they may be stark at a point in time, but for the most part, you won't recognize it until after you've exercised it.
Do you feel that most golfers, and I'm not saying PGA or competitive golfers, but just most golfers that are out there don't know how to practice?
Oh, I don't. I'm convinced of it. I think most people are of the cut that they believe that the more balls you hit, the better you will be. Well, that's true if it's organized practice. But the problem with just going out there and hitting balls is, in a little while, the person gets a little bit bored, so he says, I think I'll try this. Next thing you know, he's changing this a little bit, or he's changing that a little bit, or he's changing something else a little bit. Now he has confused his non-discriminatory system, because your system, believe it or not, is just going to take in what you give it. Garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
Okay? So what's going to happen is that whole little element of experimentation is going to get in there, and it's impossible to build. First of all, it's impossible to build a habit doing that, because you've confused the system, and the system hasn't had enough repetition to build a habit. In other words, most people practice. They may hit 1,000 balls, which means they've done 1,000 different things one time each. So the practicing part has to be carefully chosen, guided, and formulated for it to really be effective. Now, I'm not saying that you, as a matter of fact, in that little book of mine, I talk about 3 kinds of practice. There's habilitative practice. That's where you're learning something brand new. There's rehabilitative practice. That's where you're fixing something that you already knew and it got a little bent, rusty, or broken. And then there's recreational practice. That's where you go out and you just beat balls. Well, recreational practice is okay if you tell yourself when you walk out there, look, I'm just going to hit a few balls here. I don't want you to remember one single thing that I do right now. And your system will pay attention to that. See, a lot of people don't realize how important self-talk is in this game. And most of the self-talk you hear about is, now, just take it easy here. Let's be confident about this. Let's trust this or whatever. And self-talk is either that or, what, you stupid oaf? What was that all about? So self-talk gets to be either overkill on the positive side or overkill on the negative side. What self-talk should be is purely instructive. Here's what I want to have happen on this shot.
And the overkill on the negative side is usually what gets verbalized out on the course.
Oh yeah.
People you don't hear people praising themselves out on the course, but you do hear people getting very upset with themselves.
Oh yes, absolutely, and that'll kind of follow a style trend too. I mean, I won't go into that one, but the various styles will do that differently. There's one style that you'll never know whether they hit a bad shot or a good shot. That's like the Ben Crenshaws of this world who walk down the course, and you don't know whether they just hit their best shot or their worst shot.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of those. I call them craftsmen. There are a bunch of them out there. You got guys like Guy Berger and Ben Crenshaw, and Davis Love's got a little of that in him, and there are a whole bunch of them out there that are craftsmen. Craftsmen, by the way, are probably the largest single group of among athletes, because they are the ones who naturally have rhythm and pace to what they do.
And a level of discipline?
They have discipline, but it's discipline. Any of the four styles can have discipline if they choose it. But the craftsman has a little bit of that natively. The one that has the most discipline natively is the analyzer, which is the guy who's going to be very detailed and very specific and very perfectionistic and so forth.
I'm sure we can spend a whole other show just talking about the different personality types.
No question about it, and I would love to do that with you, because I sometimes listen to the golf announcers, and they talk about why this guy did this or why that guy did that, and they miss the style completely.
Interesting.
Their commentator work would be so much better if they understood styles and could put that into the picture of what they're describing.
Yeah. But let's talk for just a moment about your book so people can be aware of it.
Okay. I thought maybe you were going to ask me a question.
Okay, I'll ask you a question. What's the name of your book?
Well, the name of the book is The Double Connection, and I think that may have confused people over time because it doesn't sound like a golf book. But the reason it got that name was that somebody pointed out that the book related to more things than just golf, that it also related to life. And so I said, well, then let's just call it The Double Connection.
I see.
So it's spelled Connexion because somebody also said, well, let's spell it funny, and then we can make cross golf clubs in there for the X.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make it very easy to find on the internet, though.
That's right.
Thank you for spelling it.
It isn't easy to find on the internet. That's very true.
And where can we find it on the internet?
Well,
since we're doing it.
If you're looking for it precisely, you'll find it on my website, which is just clearkeygolf.com.
Clear Key Golf, and there's no strange spellings in that, right?
Right.
Clearkeygolf.com.
Right, and I also have a website that's doubleconnection.com, which is with connection spelled Connexion, and it's all one word, of course, double connection.
And it's not the double connection, it's just doubleconnection.com.
Right.
Okay,
right.
With an X. Okay. Great.
And the book is it's one that you don't have to read it straight through. I mean, it's not like a novel or anything like that. You can pick and choose where you want to get into the book right from the beginning. Now, there are some early chapters that are probably wise to read first, but by looking at the table of contents, you can go. I mean, if you want to look up things on the automatic process, that's it. That's there. If you want to look up things about practice, that's there. All of them are cataloged in a way that you can use it like the Reader's Digest if you want to.
So it's a reference. You can use it as a reference material and go back to it numerous times.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, a lot of the TGM guys, the golfing machine guys, they sort of see what I've done with it, and they sometimes make the parallel between book is to the golf psychology what Homer Kelly's book was to the golf swing.
Well, congratulations for that. That's nice praise.
Yeah, and there are at least a few who have said that Homer Kelly's 14th chapter was all about the computer, the mind, and they sort of look at it as though what I say about all of that is what Homer would have said if he'd gotten to complete his 14th chapter. So it's I tried only to use things that were basic. I don't have an opinion in there as far as what you might refer to truly as an opinion. If you follow my drift on that.
I do. Carey, this has been really fascinating. I appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time for me. That's I really consider that a privilege. So I sometimes feel like George Carlin. I have to have a place to put my stuff.